Alysa Liu had barely made it through the heavy security perimeter of the Milano ice arena when the crushing weight of her career-defining moment was just minutes away from descending. This was the opening week of the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympics, and the atmosphere in Italy was thick enough to choke on. Team USA was drowning in expectations that felt heavy enough to break bone. For Alysa, this wasn't just another competition. This was meant to be the ultimate comeback story, the definitive moment when the burned-out former Wonder Teen would finally silence every critic, every judge, and every doubter to take back what was rightfully hers on the ice. But instead of getting locked in, instead of running through her choreography mentally with noise-canceling headphones on, or finding some quiet corner to do her pre-competition floor rotations, she was trapped in the back seat of a vehicle. You have to picture this scene to truly understand the absurdity of the moment. It is the nightmare scenario for any elite athlete. Some massive vice presidential convoy, security details, flashing blue lights, the screaming sirens, the whole diplomatic works had turned Milan's winding historic cobblestone streets into a complete, immovable parking lot. And here was America's national champion, sitting in gridlock, watching the terrifying digital numbers tick away on her phone. Inside the arena, just a few miles away, her biggest rivals were already going through their rituals. They were warming up, they were getting their skates tight, feeling out the edges on the ice surface, acclimating to the roar of the crowd, and smelling that specific mix of Zamboni exhaust and cold air. When you're talking about Olympic figure skating, a sport of millimeters where the tiniest edge miscalculation can crush your dreams or launch you to immortality, your preparation routine becomes sacred. It is a ritual. It is a religion. You do not mess with the ritual. Any other competitor would have been a complete shattered wreck. Most athletes, even seasoned veterans with ice water in their veins, would have shown up in complete meltdown mode. They would have been hyperventilating, screaming at their handlers, watching their lifelong Olympic aspirations disappear into the chaos of Italian road rage. But when Alysa Liu finally crashed through those arena doors with basically no time left before taking the ice, she wasn't having a breakdown. She wasn't spiraling. She wasn't panicking. She was cracking up laughing. She threw on her skates faster than anyone thought physically possible, fingers flying over the laces. She completely bypassed that crucial 6-minute warm-up session where skaters test the ice conditions, a suicide mission in professional skating, and walked straight into the Olympic pressure cooker. What happened next completely destroyed every assumption about how an Olympic athlete is supposed to behave. She stepped onto the ice and unleashed a short program so brilliantly joyful, so defiantly radiant, that it left every single person in that building speechless. When she launched into her signature double axel and came down with a tiny noticeable wobble, the entire arena held its breath. In the old days, that wobble would have been the end of the world. But Alysa? She didn't look devastated. She didn't throw that panicked, apologetic look toward the judges, like she'd just committed some unforgivable sin against the skating gods. Instead, she gave this completely relaxed, almost amused expression, a little smirk that said, "Well, that happened." When the press went crazy asking about the imperfect landing afterward, expecting a tearful apology or a technical excuse, she just gave them that classic shrug and smile, saying it was like, oopsie. That little oopsie moment wasn't just some cute reaction to a shaky jump. It was a manifesto. It was a revolution playing out live for millions of viewers. It announced to everyone watching that the Alysa competing in Milan was fundamentally transformed from the exhausted kid who disappeared from the sport 4 years earlier. She wasn't returning just to collect hardware. She wasn't there for the federation. She wasn't there for the critics on Twitter. She was coming back to reclaim her entire existence. Turns out, when you stop obsessing over those cold numbers on the scoreboard and start genuinely loving the artistry of what you do, you become absolutely unstoppable. But to really grasp just how massive Alysa Liu's Olympic gold comeback really was, and why that laugh in the face of traffic was so radical, we need to go back in time. We need to peel back the layers of history to understand the machine she escaped from. We need to examine the empty, drained expression of the girl who once dominated this sport as a child. Before becoming Milan's unapologetic rebel royalty, Alysa Liu represented everything the American figure skating establishment wanted to create. Growing up in Clovis, California, and then moving into the intense, cutthroat Bay Area skating scene, Alysa was designed to be a competitive weapon. This wasn't just a hobby, it was an industrial-scale project. Her father, Arthur Liu, reportedly dropped over $1 million on her skating development before she even hit high school. Her whole world revolved around podium finishes, spin rates, jump height, and the relentless pursuit of perfection. At just 12 years old, she became the youngest competitor ever to nail a triple axel in international competition. By 13, she accomplished something that seemed impossible. She claimed the youngest U.S. national championship in history, destroying a record that had belonged to the legendary Tara Lipinski for over 2 decades. She was the chosen prodigy, the perfect girl with the flawless braids and that constant camera-ready smile. She was carrying the impossible burden of single-handedly rescuing American women's skating from the era of the Russian quad squad. You have to remember the context of that era. This was the time when teenagers from the Atari Tutberidze camp in Moscow were rewriting the laws of physics. They were landing quadruple jumps, 4 full revolutions in the air, skills that were previously thought impossible for women. But they were doing it at a terrible cost, often retiring by age 17 with broken backs and eating disorders. Alysa was America's answer to that machine. She was the quad queen of the West. She was the only hope the US had to stay relevant. But underneath all those sparkly competition dresses, behind the sequins and the glamorous facade, this prodigy was drowning. Her childhood looked like endless 5 a.m. wake-up calls, brutal early morning ice sessions before the sun came up, and getting educated in car backseats while stuck in California highway traffic. She was this naturally outgoing, hilarious, social person locked away in complete isolation. She was kept in this protective bubble that shielded her from regular friendships, while simultaneously throwing her into the brutal 24/7 spotlight of online forums. We're talking about hardcore skating communities that analyzed every single element of her jumps, criticized her diet, and dissected her physical development as she went through puberty in front of the world. By the time she finally made it to the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics, she was just 16 years old, and she was running on empty. That ice princess image was completely falling apart. She was throwing these incredibly dangerous, body-destroying quadruple jumps in a sport that she'd grown to absolutely despise. Remember Beijing? The COVID Olympics, the isolation, the empty stands, the hazmat suits, the Kamila Valieva doping scandal that cast a dark, cynical shadow over the entire women's event. While everyone watched Alysa earn a solid, respectable 6th-place finish on the world's biggest stage, Alysa was internally just waiting for the moment she could take off those skates forever. She wasn't fighting for Olympic medals in China. She was fighting to find the exit door. Within weeks of grabbing a bronze medal at the World Championships right after the Olympics, a medal that anyone else would have built a career on, she completely shocked the skating world by retiring. Think about that. A 16-year-old phenomenon, the face of American skating, didn't just step away. She ran. She pulled the ripcord. For 2 solid years, those expensive custom boots sat collecting dust somewhere in her closet. Alysa later revealed in brutally honest interviews that she honestly had no idea where her skates even were for the longest time. She didn't care. If they rotted, let them rot. This became Alysa's wilderness period. But to her, it didn't feel like being lost. It felt like freedom for the first time ever. It was her first chance in 2 decades to actually discover who Alysa was, if you deleted the skater part of her identity. She did everything the rigid old-school skating establishment considered forbidden. She took spontaneous road trips with regular friends who couldn't tell you the difference between a Lutz and a flip. She enrolled at UCLA to study psychology, finally getting to experience the wild, chaotic, amazing social connections she'd been denied for a decade. She lived in a dorm. She went to parties. She ate pizza. She stayed up late. She traveled all the way to Nepal, hiking up to Everest Base Camp. She traded those sterile, freezing rink environments for the dangerous, thin mountain air of the Himalayas. She tried volleyball and tennis just because moving her body felt good when nobody was holding a clipboard and scoring her performance out of 10. During this break, she aggressively took back control of her identity. Figure skating has always worshipped traditional, conservative aesthetics. Classical music, tight buns, polite waves, pastel colors. Alysa completely rejected all of that. She went for bold platinum streaks in her hair that looked like a raccoon pattern. She got a hidden smiley piercing behind her top lip. She developed this alternative Gen Z style that would have given traditional Eastern European coaches heart attacks. She was living what she called her best life, totally convinced she'd never compete again. She straight up told media outlets that she really didn't like skating anymore. She wanted nothing to do with the corporate system that had stolen her teenage years. But something shifted inside her in early 2024. It wasn't US figure skating calling and begging her to come back. It wasn't some coach dangling sponsorship money in front of her. It happened during a random ski trip with her friends. Carving down those slopes, feeling that freezing wind and pure speed rush, something clicked in her brain. It was visceral. She had this realization. She didn't actually hate being on ice. She missed that incredible feeling. She missed the sensation of flight. She didn't hate skating itself. She hated the toxic, suffocating culture around it. She hated the expectations. She hated the machine. So she quietly went to some local public rink in California. No press, no coaches, just her. She was surrounded by stumbling little kids and weekend recreational skaters holding onto the wall. She just wanted to see if her muscle memory was still there. She laced up those old beat-up boots, pushed off across the ice, attempted a double axel, and stuck the landing perfectly. That single jump lit a fire that couldn't be put out. But she made a vow. This comeback was going to happen under different rules. If Alysa Liu was returning to international competition, it wouldn't be following her father's timeline. It wouldn't be about the Federation's medal expectations. This was going to be 100% her decision. She'd pick her own music. She'd design her own completely different costumes. She'd embraced this flexible, mentally healthy philosophy that put personal happiness above Olympic hardware. The 2025 season was supposed to be her gentle return, a low-pressure way for Alysa to test whether she could still compete with the world's best after years of college parties and studying. Instead, it became this devastating display of technical excellence and raw emotional power. When she showed up at the 2025 Worlds in Boston, all the international media attention was focused on Japan's dominant national team, led by the incredible Kaori Sakamoto. Nobody expected Alysa Liu, who'd been seriously training for less than a year, to threaten for gold. Then she took the ice. She delivered a personal record short program that left everyone completely stunned. She skated with a depth and quiet confidence that her over-programmed younger self never possessed. She wasn't desperately trying to impress anyone, she was sharing her artistry with the audience. In the free skate, she was absolutely magical. She became the first American woman in 19 painful years to capture the World Championship, ending this devastating drought that had haunted U.S. skating since Kimi Meissner back in 2006. But the most culturally important part of that victory wasn't the gold medal around her neck. It was watching her reaction in the kiss and cry area. She was crying uncontrollably, not from relief about meeting expectations, but because she felt genuinely proud of the art she'd just created. She'd successfully taken her sport back from all those past demons. She told Boston reporters directly, "Medals don't validate who I am. I validate myself when I create art." This was the birth of Alysa 2.0. The competitor who treats the Olympics like a performance venue and the scoreboard like background noise. Which brings us to the heart of the 2026 Milano Cortina Games, where the Blade Angels officially conquered the world. The nickname started casually in group chats between Alysa, Amber Glenn, and Isabelle Levito. It represented their deep friendship in this brutal, lonely sport that usually demands bitter rivalry. Together, they've become the most beloved, culturally significant trio in American skating history. A crew of unashamed rebels who refused to fit that outdated ice princess stereotype. In the highly anticipated team event earlier this month, Alysa was the electric energy driving the American squad. Despite all that VP motorcade madness and having zero physical warm-up time, her incredible second-place short program finish earned Team USA 9 crucial points that shifted the momentum against Japan. She competed with this wild freedom that spread to everyone around her. When Team USA climbed to the top of that Olympic podium for their repeat team gold, Alysa was bouncing highest, yelling loudest, and completely living in that perfect moment. Then came that legendary medal incident. In her uncontainable excitement, she'd been jumping around so aggressively that the heavy gold medal literally broke right off its official ribbon and crashed onto the arena floor. It got pretty scratched up and dented. Most athletes would have been mortified. Alysa, she laughed about her clumsiness in interviews that immediately went viral. Horrified Olympic officials eventually approached her, politely offering to swap the damaged medal for a perfect replacement from storage. Alysa looked at them and said, "No thanks." She flat out refused their offer. She told these confused officials that she actually preferred the medal broken and imperfect. She felt connected to those flaws. To her, that dented, battered piece of gold perfectly captured her entire career journey. It wasn't pristine, it wasn't perfect. It was a little beat up, but it was completely authentic. That genuine moment made millions of young fans around the world fall in love with her. People who were tired of overly polished, media-trained, robotic Olympic stories we get force-fed every cycle. Tonight, February 19, 2026, the climax of the Winter Games, Alysa Liu returns to the ice for the individual women's free skate. The pressure couldn't be higher in the sports world. But if you watch her in the backstage warm-up area, while her Japanese and South Korean competitors are nervously pacing, staring at nothing, and cracking under the massive weight of their national programs, you see something different. You see Alysa Liu casually holding a Pochita plushie from the Chainsaw Man anime. She's eating udon noodles. She's discussing her favorite TV shows with her coaching team. Tonight is everything. She's the defending world champion. She's the Grand Prix final winner. She's the overwhelming favorite to end America's 24-year individual women's gold drought, a curse that has haunted the U.S. since Sarah Hughes' shocking Salt Lake City victory in 2002. But as they announce her name, Alysa Liu isn't thinking about national anthems or history books. She's thinking about joy. She glides to center ice. The arena goes completely quiet. She assumes her opening position and does something unexpected. She takes this long, deep cleansing breath. Her new free skate program reflects her newfound independence. She didn't choose some heartbreaking classical piece designed to manipulate judges' artistic scores. She didn't pick Carmen or Swan Lake for the 100th time. She stepped out in this shimmering, edgy gold costume to the booming, confident disco energy of Donna Summer's MacArthur Park suite. Bold, strange, groovy, full of synthesizers and brass. It was absolutely incredible. The technical execution of what followed was a masterpiece of efficient movement and mental strength. She didn't attempt those bone-crushing quadruple jumps that once destroyed her teenage body and mind. She wasn't trying to outjump the ghosts of the Russian squads. Instead, she focused completely on supreme execution quality. Every single one of her 7 triple jumps landed with this smooth, effortless flow that earned massive bonus points from the judges' panel. Her triple Lutz triple toe combination was like butter. Her axles were high and proud. Her spins were perfectly controlled, centering instantly. Her footwork sequences blazed with complexity, matching the frantic disco beat of the music. Her artistic component scores hit career highs because she was actually feeling the music, not just skating through it. But the real magic of this Olympic performance was happening between the technical elements. Between jumps, Alysa was actively connecting with those 12,000 screaming fans. She was making eye contact with people in the front sections. She was performing for the crowd, not at the judges. The BBC commentators mentioned live that she looked like she was having the time of her life, something you rarely hear describing the intense, terrifying atmosphere of an Olympic final. This relaxed, genuinely joyful energy became her ultimate weapon. She'd found a way to be the world's greatest athlete without letting that pursuit destroy her humanity. When Donna Summer's final triumphant notes echoed through the Milano ice arena and Alysa struck her concluding pose, the outcome felt inevitable. The arena exploded. That 12,000-seat stadium became this incredible wall of sound. Alysa threw her fists up, tilted her head back, and absorbed the deafening roar from a crowd that knew they'd just witnessed something historic. When her score appeared on the big screen, a massive personal best of 150.2 in the free skate, totaling an untouchable 226.79 overall, reality hit everyone at once. The Oopsie Queen had become the undisputed Olympic queen. She'd successfully fought off the fierce challenge from Japan's reigning world champions. She'd officially ended that 24-year American gold curse. But more importantly, she'd completed the most unlikely, inspiring full-circle story in Winter Olympic history. With this incredible victory, Alysa Liu didn't win by copying the abusive robotic methods that dominated the sport for the past 2 decades. She didn't win through starvation, overtraining, or fear-based precision. She won by being the most genuine, balanced, and human competitor on that ice. Her victory represents this massive, fundamental transformation in how figure skating works. It proves definitively that sustainability, personal agency, and mental wellness aren't just nice extras in athletics. They are actual, measurable, competitive advantages. Her gold medal sends a clear message to every young, burned-out athlete worldwide who feels that same suffocation she experienced at 16. It says you're allowed to step away. It says you're allowed to have a full, rich life beyond the arena, the field, or the court. It says your value as a human being isn't determined by your athletic results, your medal collection, or your ability to spin through the air. The United States Figure Skating Federation, which once saw 13-year-old Alysa as a calculated investment to be managed, now has to recognize the 20-year-old woman as their complete savior. But standing at the absolute peak of global sports, Alysa stays remarkably, hilariously grounded. She told reporters in the mixed zone after the medal ceremony that her favorite part of this historic night wasn't actually receiving the gold medal. It was getting to celebrate wildly with her friends, embrace her competitors, and then head out into the Italian night for pizza with her family. She's the first truly relatable GOAT in modern figure skating history. This Milan triumph for Alysa Liu isn't about that heavy piece of metal hanging from her neck. It's completely about the personal freedom she fought desperately to reclaim. She showed everyone that greatness isn't measured by how much suffering and mistreatment you can silently endure. It's measured by how much you can courageously choose for yourself. She chose to quit when it was destroying her. She chose to return when it brought happiness. She chose her music. She chose her coaches as partners, not masters. She chose her wild raccoon hair. And ultimately, the judges chose her. Standing on that top podium in the heart of Italy, watching the American flag slowly rise, and hearing the anthem fill the stadium, she didn't look like some programmed machine that had been refined until it lost all personality. She looked exactly like someone who had experienced countless different lives in just 20 years, and finally, beautifully, discovered the one that suited her perfectly. Alysa Liu didn't just earn gold in Milan. She reclaimed her entire existence. She proved to a generation of kids watching at home that the most graceful, powerful, and rebellious thing you can ever do on ice isn't some quadruple jump. It is the unwavering decision to be completely yourself, no matter what anyone else expects from you. The 2026 Winter Games will be remembered for many reasons, but the legend of the Rebel Queen will be what transforms this sport's DNA forever. Milan belongs to her. The drought is over. Alysa Liu is exactly where she decided to be,